I don't know what Vince is thinking these days, because he contradicts what the Vince McMahon of the 90s would do on a regular basis. And I'm not talking about because everyone learns and evolves. I'm talking about his basic rules of life that he would never think of deviating from. Do not stand anymore.
I want to see how he'll react if this Garden show doesn't do anything. If the tickets don't move, if they don't get a respectable house in there, how's he going to react to that? Because now they've actually been mentioning it on TV.
Well, and that was the first sign that they desperately want to make a statement with the Garden. And I saw somebody say, well, it's because AEW drew X amount of people in the New York market. No, it's deeper than that. Do the young people know? It's been out there before, but do the young people know that one of the natural laws of wrestling that Vincent Kennedy McMahon learned from his father, Vincent James McMahon, was as the Garden goes, so goes the business. That was his measuring stick. That was his early warning indicator. That was the whole thing. As the Garden went, the entire business would follow. And that's back in the days, yes, of the territory where the Garden got the big matches first, but then they eventually filter to Philly and Boston and Baltimore and wherever. But down deep, Vince still, I believe, feels that in some way. As goes the Garden, goes the business. And when he sees the Garden flat on its ass, he may be seeing his business there in a year or two. Because let's face it, we think it sucks because the product is the shits, but they're still making money hand over fist. But that might not always be the case, especially if the Garden is an early indicator like it was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s.
You know, the Garden right now in a lot of ways is more representative of the WWE's audience, I would think, than the classic Garden audience. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the price of going to the Garden. You go watch any old Madison Square Garden footage, and I know you and Weasel Dooley would shit on it, but if you would get past that for a moment and look at the makeup of the crowd, it was working class people in good seats.
Those were the $8 and $9 and $10 people that would come once a month, and that was the most important thing in the world to them. And it was the same thing in the South with the $5 people, because the tickets were only half as much as they were in the Garden back then. And the wrestling business prospered by not only keeping those people loyal and faithful for their entire lives, and they would bring their kids, and their kids would bring their kids, but also it was affordable to them. And the business flourished because of the mass numbers that wrestling could get. And again, like everything else about wrestling, that has completely done a 180. And now there are, for the people who say there's this big resurgence there's a big resurgence in the interest in the wrestling business from some of the same people that wanted to be interested 3 or 4 years ago, blah, blah, blah. There has never been a case where there were fewer individual people in this world watching wrestling and spending more per head on it. So it's the exact 180 of what the wrestling business for decades and decades was founded on, is that hook as many people as you can and keep the tickets cheap so that they will come back over and over again.
Well,
I've just blown your mind.
No, I mean, it's a sad indictment of where we are today, but unfortunately that's across the board. I mean, you go watch baseball games from years back, not even all that. I say not even that far back. 30 years ago is far back. Now that I think about it. Go watch from 30 years ago.
I got socks that age. Come on.
But you see working class people, and that's not to say, hey, we don't want you to be able to come and bring your family, but, you know, they started looking for people who were going to come and bring their entire family as opposed to people who were going to work hard and want to buy a ticket and maybe go by themselves or maybe go with a buddy and hang out. It completely changed the makeup of the crowd, and it's not just wrestling, it's all sports. But Jim, you know, all wrestling and all sports start somewhere and grow, kind of like a seed.
Oh, God.
And I'm sorry for setting you up for the worst layup of all time, but I apologize.
Folks, since you may be as confused as I am about where we're going, I actually know I got no help in getting there. But, sometimes it's a gut feeling, Brian. It's a gut feeling about these things that are changing. Your gut can change, too, with the gut feelings. You need to keep care of your gut. And it turns out, Brian, I don't know whether you were aware of this or not, but it turns out that everything you think you know about probiotics may be wrong.
No way.
Yeah, it's true.
Everything?
Everything.
Damn.
And since I knew absolutely not one goddamn thing about probiotics, apparently I was in the right, but I was still ignorant of the facts. But there is good news because there is a company of an entity, a group of people called Seed, that have a daily symbiotic that's the real deal. Because everybody knows you got to have some symbiosis with your symbiotic. The daily symbiotic created by the folks at Seed, because not all probiotics are created equal, is a broad spectrum 2-in-1 probiotic plus prebiotic. So you got the probiotic, and then you got the prebiotic. So you got the pre and the pro, and they're all together 2-in-1. So you get both pre and pro at the same time. It's a proprietary formulation of 24 distinct probiotic strains. And I didn't know that there were 24 strains of probiotics. I actually didn't know that it was possible to strain a probiotic. I've strained my muscles. I've strained my milk one time, but I've never strained my probiotic. But there's 24 distinct probiotic strains in scientifically studied dosages, because if you're going to take a dose of something, it should be studied scientifically beforehand. There's also proprietary engineered 2-in-1 capsules that protect probiotics through digestion to ensure delivery to the colon. Now, folks, again, delivery to the colon is an issue for everybody. If you want to make sure that you have proper deliveries to your colon, first of all, people with narrow driveways or twisting driveways that have to come through an entry gate, like I have problems with my deliveries all the time. UPS, FedEx, they can't back those big trucks into that small. If you don't have a big opening, then deliveries to your colon are going to be more difficult. And then you've got to keep the back door open if you've got a long carry from where the truck stops to where the back door is, and then to get all the way into the colon to have this stuff delivered, make sure you move the furniture. If you've taken a probiotic before and never felt a difference, it's likely because the good bacteria was not surviving your GI tract. Did you know that the GI tract can kill the good bacteria?
Maybe the gerbil ate it.
Well, because again, gerbils, especially if they're on coke, they shouldn't have that appetite. But Seed is designed differently, and that's how it works, because it survives the GI tract. I know my Uncle Cliff, he had Army infantrymen in his GI tract, and they would mow down anything. But regardless of what kind of GIs you're using, is surviving an entire lineup of GIs is difficult. But what does the daily symbiotic do for you, you're asking me? Well, I'm telling you, it supports benefits in and beyond the gut. Seed will support ease of bloating. I've never had any problem becoming bloated. It's very easy for me. It's almost effortless. No, I understand what they're saying. They're going to ease the bloating. So if you are bloated, folks, if you look like you've been floating in the river for 3 days, or you're going dressed up as Chris Jericho for Halloween, you might need to have your bloating eased. Also, the daily symbiotic from our friends at Seed promotes healthy regularity and ease of evacuation. If you know what I mean, you know what that means. You're not only going to be regular, possibly you might be unstoppable on this stuff. And Boy, I tell you what, it's not going to be any problem dropping the Browns off at the Super Bowl and letting the fudge monkey out of his cage. This stuff, it's like you've drunk a quart of motor oil. It'll grease and just shoot right out your orifice. It'll be so easy. You'll never even know it'll fall out without you knowing it.
No, that's not how it works. You will be in control of your bodily functions, but it'll certainly help if you do have things like bloating. It'll help ease things, but you will be in control. Let's make sure we stress that.
Well, sometimes I could just, without taking this stuff, I can barely get to the toilet before that fucking chocolate rocket's being fired off. So if this helps, I may just be walking around just evacuating, talking to you. You never know about these things. It also supports your gut barrier, your skin health, your heart health, and micronutrient bowel movement. Oh, no, micronutrient synthesis. I skipped a line there.
Micronutrient bowel movement?
Apparently no such thing as a micronutrient bowel movement because I skipped a line on this copy. But it's important to note that gut immune function is not boosting the immune system. It's about supporting the crosstalk between your intestinal cells and your immune cells. So you can talk between cells. Sometimes they pass notes between cells, but that's only when the guards are not looking. Many of you folks will see improvements in your digestion within 24 to 48 hours, which can include bowel movement regularity and eased bloating. You might notice that within a couple of days. Some of you will notice an inability to eat solid food for the rest of your life after this. But that can be easily fixed with our special liquid diet that we sell separately. So,
all right, keep going. I give up.
I'm coming back in a second. So start a new healthy habit.
I'll mute myself.
So start a new healthy habit today. Healthy habits are very important to start. Visit seed.com, SEED.com, parentheses, right? It's a slash or a parentheses. There's a slash and it's in parentheses.
No, I don't think you need to use the parentheses. I think it's just the word drive.
Seed.com/drive and use the code DRIVE to redeem 20% off your first month of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. That's an awkward way of saying I think you're going to get 20% off. That's seed.com, SEED.com/drive. Jump on this stuff and get this 20% off while that's still available, because I have a feeling once they hear this, it won't be for long. Again, start a new healthy habit today with our friends at Seed. And also, you'll get this box. I got this box, and it's got two containers in it. One is a jar of the Daily Symbiotic, and another is a tube. It looks like a test tube, and it's green, and it's got a screw on top, and it's labeled bacteria. And to be honest, I've started taking the Symbiotic, and that's why it's amazing. I've lost 40, 50 pounds in the last 36 hours. It's amazing.
No, you haven't. Don't even say that. Of course you haven't.
I'm sorry. I'm just kidding there. But this test tube is just labeled bacteria. And because it's a green glass tube with a screw on top and it's labeled bacteria, I'm thinking that you should keep this part at home. Because if you try to fly with this stuff, you could probably get sentenced to a federal penitentiary for trying to take active bacteria in a test tube on a plane.
Don't worry about traveling with your Seed. And of course, Seed comes with directions on how to apply and how to use Seed.
It does come with all the directions, and you can travel with your Seed. You can travel with your Seed. You can spread your Seed all over the place if you want to.
We want to thank Seed for becoming a sponsor of the show here. But Jim,
we want to thank Seed for their fine 7 days of sponsorship.